back to Home and Gift Virtual. We really hope you found this morning's session useful and insightful. This afternoon, we're exploring social media, which remains high on the list of priorities for design-led businesses as a valuable tool to find and engage with potential customers, promote upcoming campaigns and drive sales. But knowing where to focus our efforts can be overwhelming with so many platforms and ways to connect. So in this session, we're going to firstly touch on a few trends that we'll be seeing during 2020 before getting back to basics and sharing with you the top 10 tips for building a thriving and sustainable social media presence that works for both you and your business. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Jess Clarkson, Social Insider at Marks & Spencer, Louise Kemp, founder of Peony and Grace and the Enterprise Collective, and our host, Fiona Minute, founder of Boss Your PR. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us, Abigail, to talk all things social media. So just before we start, just to let you know that we're going to be doing a Q&A at the end, so please do ask your questions on the live chat function as we're chatting, and we'll come back to them at the end. So, as Abigail said, social media is a huge topic. It's something that remains really crucial for all businesses, especially product businesses, to engage with potential customers, to find potential customers and promote upcoming campaigns, launches, and to really drive traffic and sales to their business. Now, as I said, it's such a big topic, but to dive into a few of these key trends that are happening at the moment, and we're obviously mindful that sort of the COVID-19 pandemic has had its impact and has changed how social media functions and how we use it. So just to touch on a few of these trends that we're seeing coming through in the last few months. Stories, Instagram stories are continuing to grow. There is just such a swell of activity going on stories at the moment, so much so that Instagram is updating how it displays stories. So there's a lot of rumblings about how they're testing that function and how many sort of stories are going to be presented to us, how we're going to be able to view them. And it's something that it's ephemeral content. It's something that disappears, so it's very immediate. It's great for asking questions, for gauging your audience, for sharing polls, for a bit of sort of research. And our attention span as consumers is condensing, it's getting shorter. So stories tends to be a great tool to communicate. And it's something that's sort of moving into another of the trends, actually, where video content is exploding, and you will see more and more video content coming through, not only through the use of stories, through the use of IGTV, but coming through on people's grids as well, and through Facebook. It's the kind of thing that you want to stop your audience scrolling and you want them to engage with you, and video is becoming a huge part of that. So it's something that we'll touch on again through the session, but it's something that can feel intimidating to businesses, especially product. You know, what kind of video content do I need to be creating? How do I make the most of it? But I think the rise of TikTok through lockdown has been insane. And actually what that's done is really shown us a more irreverent way of using video, so we can have fun with video. Is that something that Jessie and Louise, is that something that you've dabbled with in terms of sort of video content thus far?
Definitely did it. I did one during lockdowns, my first ever TikTok.
Yeah.
I had my 12-year-old sister to help me out though, because I had no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun, and I did a skincare routine one, and it was really easy to use, and like you say, it's short and it does grab your attention. So I do think I would like to do like outfit ones in the future, and I feel like it's just a quick way to see things. But yeah, I agree, it grabs people's attention, so definitely like to explore that more.
Exactly, it's worth exploring, it's worth experimenting with, and kind of demystifying it, because as I said, it can feel a step further, it can be quite intimidating to businesses. Just quickly diving into another one of the trends that we're seeing, and this has started to happen on a couple of the accounts that I run for work, in that Instagram is hiding likes. So you're unable to see the number of likes and views that other people's content has garnered. And as I said, it's not fully rolled out yet. The reasoning behind it was really sort of mindfulness and mental health. Well, that's what Instagram were saying. And I think that is a big part of it, because the more that we use social media, the more heavily entrenched it becomes in our lives. We have to find a way to separate from that. And Louise, I know for you, using social media as a business, it's probably quite easy. We all do it. We fall into that comparisonitis trap, don't we? And do you find that notion of removing the Instagram likes and that kind of, has that eased the sort of comparison and how you view Instagram?
Yeah. When I saw the news about Instagram removing the likes, I thought, actually, this actually might work for me, because I think you do find that the bigger brands, the people that have already got a huge following, I think when people see their posts and see the tally of likes that they get, I think that then sort of makes them think, oh, this is popular. I'm going to like it too, as like a bit of a peer pressure thing and a following the herd. So to get rid of that, I think might mean that obviously the people with a lower number of likes, or the low number of followers might get organically some more likes. But yeah, it does stop you, because a lot of people at the end of the year, you go through your feed and everybody does a top 9 to see what was the most liked post. There just won't be that. You know, you'll be able to see, I believe, you'll probably know more than me, Fiona, but you'll still be able to see how much interaction you get on each post. It just won't be visible for everybody else scrolling through. So you'll still be able to see how popular your post is, but it's not going to be glaringly obvious for everybody else. And you won't think, oh my goodness, I've just posted something, it's only got 10 likes. Oh, I can't do that again. That's mortifying. Because you do feel a pressure to post something that is going to be engaging, that is going to be popular. And sometimes I do think, oh, I'm not sure about posting this picture or this caption, because what if it doesn't get many likes, and then it's going to be embarrassing, and I'm just not going to do it. So it does put you off a little bit.
I think you can be really held back by that, the sort of the public element of that. I mean, obviously, it is public, and we're putting ourselves out there, and you know, for people, essentially for people to judge whether positive or negative. But I think there's a lot to do with that sort of mental health and how we find that balance moving forward, because everything has hurtled at such a speed up until this point. It's nice to kind of have that moment where you stop and you really think about how you're consuming social media. Another point on Instagram removing likes is that there's a lot of people that reject the reason that Instagram has given, and in sort of being a bit more cynical, that this change is about them making more money, is about brands paying money to influencers to promote and support their businesses, and it kind of supports the swell of influencer marketing, for better or for worse. So I think it's interesting, and that topic is a whole other topic in itself, isn't it? The Instagram marketing thing.
Yeah, see, I'd not even thought about that as being a reason that they've introduced it. So that's it actually makes me think of, it makes sense that they want to sort of have a they're not involved in the influencer side of things. They're not getting any money from the popularity of influencers. So it makes sense that they kind of want to kind of curb that a little bit.
Exactly, definitely. And I think it's interesting to just come at these things from all these different angles. In terms of when we're talking about sort of business and how businesses are using social media, the final trend that I want to touch on before we go into our top 10 is social media commerce and how that is continuing to grow. Now, we've seen it over the last year or so that the platforms have become more shoppable, and, you know, whether that's Facebook or Instagram, and it's like these sort of channels that are positioning themselves as almost sort of retail channels in themselves, like sort of curators of great retail. And we're seeing it more and more. And I've noticed that through this pandemic, through this lockdown period, where, you know, businesses have struggled, big businesses, small businesses, they've struggled. And I've noticed Instagram particularly has almost made it easier for small businesses to sell on the platform with some of these updates and with some of these changes. So that is a trend that we saw coming in at the beginning of the year that has really escalated and ramped up in the last couple of months. So if we skip into our sort of top 10 sort of key ways to maximize your social media, the first one is to get clear on what you want. Now, it's really important in any aspect of communications. I mean, my background is PR and communications. It's really important to get clear on your goals, to get clear on your objectives. And it'd be interesting to get both of your perspectives on this, because you're coming from very different angles, and you know, it takes time to put that effort into social media. It takes time to build a following. It takes time to get that traction. But I mean, ultimately, it's understanding what that end goal is. What are you putting that effort in for, and how can you track whether you're on target for that? So, Louise, I think it'd be interesting to sort of get your take on it, as you know, from that business perspective, in terms of what your goals and objectives are around using social media.
Yeah, so for me, social media, it's all about getting sales. That's what I'm on it for. That's what I'm in business for. It sounds icky, but it is. I'm there to get people to my website to order fabric letters and home decor. That's what I'm there for. But obviously, social media, it wasn't set up for businesses in the first place. It's a social platform, so you've just got to be clever with the way that you do it. It's a social platform. You're there to sort of communicate with people, to engage with people, not to just do the hard selling. That's really going to put people off. So you've just got to be careful with the content that you put out. Get people to sort of see the background to your business, why you're there, what you're doing, what value you bring. And as I said, be part of the social platform, as opposed to just hard selling, because that's just going to put people off.
I think that's really critical, because what you said there about communicating value, I think we can struggle with selling, with being salesy, and it's almost a case of you sell the lifestyle around the product, or you sell the value within the service. Those are your messages to promote, and you will therefore end up selling, because it creates that trust and that consumer confidence. I mean, Jess, for you, you're coming at it from a very different perspective. As an M&S style insider, your sort of positioning on social media is about how you inspire your audience. Is that fair to say? So your aim is more around growing that engagement?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think because I'm young and I'm not your typical M&S, you know, buyer customer, like the reason why I joined this like project when I was 18. So like I joined with the mindset of, right, I want to do this to like open people's minds to M&S, and just think, you know, different introduce a different perspective and show different styling options, instead of like people being, you know, people say like, oh, M&S, I'll just go get my bras from there. They don't really like look. Do you know what I mean? And I just wanted to like trying to like maybe broaden their customer base, or just open people's eyes. Like you know, I know it's I know like at the end of the day I work for M&S and they, you know, want me to sell, but like I'm through this way, I kind of, in my captions, I don't really like to push that hard, you know, buy this top, you know, I just kind of like say it in like a more of a subliminal way, you know, and just like you say as well, Louise, like with the lifestyle as well, like I am a student, I'm not like your typical blogger, you know, we all, you know, all live busy lives, so like I kind of push that through mine as well. Just I'm an ordinary girl, you know.
Well, you know, I think it's really interesting to come at it from, right, my social media is a sales platform, and my social media is about more subliminal messaging and inspiring an audience. So I think, you know, very, very different goals, very different objectives, but the key thing there is to get clear on what you want to achieve from the platform, from whether that's Instagram, whether that's Facebook. You know, many businesses find different platforms work better, you know, for reaching different types of customers, different target audiences. So hone your platform and then choose, you know, sort of decide where your goals sit within that. And another point which actually sort of brings sort of some of these elements that we've just been covering into the conversation again, which is about point 2 being find your brand voice. Now, again, this is something that's very different for every business that's on social media, and social media has democratized so much of the way we communicate as businesses or as sort of influencers, the way we communicate with our audience. And it's, you know, it's essential that if you want to build a community around your business, around what you do, you need to find that sort of tone of voice. You need to find your brand personality that marries kind of the best of you with the best of your business. And it's really interesting to kind of see what works for other people, and then to sort of see where your authentic voice comes from. I mean, is that something that you've found quite natural, Lou, when it comes to promoting your business, finding your tone of voice and finding, you know, that sort of brand essence?
It has for me, because when I've obviously done the work that every sort of brand needs to do at the outset, is find your perfect customer, your ideal customer, your super customer, whoever it is, and really narrow down as to who that is. And my perfect customer is me. So it kind of helps for me that sort of I'm quite natural with what I put out in terms of my brand voice is me. I'm attracting me. Now that's obviously going to change because for me, I'm attracting sort of mums, sort of new mums to sort of, I don't know, to sort of children with 10-year-old mums with 10-year-olds. So at some point, I'm not going to be in that bracket. So I'm going to have to revise my perfect customer and who I'm speaking to. But for the moment, I am my perfect customer. It's sort of it's a mum, a working mum with sort of a good income that really appreciates handmade, really appreciates quality goods, and really appreciates a small business as well. Wants to support small business. So it's quite easy for me to speak to my customer because it's me. I always try to put a bit of humour into my my captions and my stories as well, just because I like a bit of lightheartedness. I don't take myself too seriously, so I hope that appeals to people. But yeah, at the moment, I'm finding that I'm quite natural, and the fact that I can be quite natural and can be myself on social media means that I enjoy being on there. So it's really good. I enjoy being on social media. I don't have to put on an act. I know what I want to say, and I think it appeals to people. But as I say, when the time comes and my kids are sort of teenagers or have flown the nest, and I'm still attracting those new mums, I might struggle a bit more.
It's really interesting that a couple of things you said there is that, you know, essentially you're speaking to yourself, which makes things so much easier, and you're allowed, in that sense, you're allowed to bring that humour in and to be very natural with your tone of voice. For you, Jess, obviously being a sort of an atypical M&S customer, if you like, have you found what kind of audience have gravitated to you? Is it a typical M&S customer, or is it a younger audience that you are able to open up to M&S? Where have you found your sort of brand voice leading you?
I'd say because I am affiliated with M&S, I do have to be within their their guidelines. But also, I have found I have been able to be myself, and I wouldn't be doing it if I wasn't going to be myself. But when I've been looking on my analytics, I've got a lot of young people, young friends and friends of friends following me. So that's probably the 18 to 25 bracket. And I checked on my analytics, I've got 40% that's actually 25 to 35. And I think that's mainly because of me featuring on the Marks and Spencer actual main account. And when they feature me, they tag me. So then I gain their followers. So that's mainly their bracket, obviously a little bit older as well. But it's quite interesting to see that I have got a bit of both. And therefore sometimes I post a photo, maybe it might be a bit too young for that older, slightly older. But, if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. But it's quite nice to just have a mix and just see what they like, really.
And I guess
myself and just be that, just interpret it differently. And if everyone, people like that, then that makes me happy. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think there needs to be an authenticity in any brand voice. It needs to come from something, doesn't it? And so I think those are really interesting points there. And point 3 for us to talk through is about building empathy. Now, that can come from the brand voice, the tone of voice, and how you communicate, in that you're able to engage your audience, to engage your customers, and to really, I guess, understand your customers, because they connect with you so much easier. I mean, Jess, do you find yourself being a bit of a problem solver for your audience? So they need, or they want sort of help with styling a certain look or a certain piece. Do you find that dynamic comes into play?
Definitely. Towards the beginning, I had quite a few people messaging me about sizing, and I felt like a little bit of a personal stylist, and that's a job that I wouldn't mind having, when I'm older. Like, I love stuff like that, and it's nice that I love helping people, so that aspect of the job I really love about it, and I didn't think I really would have that when I first started it. I didn't think that was going to be a part of it. But, learning on the job, like, it is. I do like that aspect.
Yeah. And Louise, for you, do you find that there is a level of empathy that you've been able to build into your comms in sort of speaking to your audience through social media?
Yeah, definitely. And the benefit of social media is you get immediate feedback. So you can tell when you are hitting the right note with your audience, because you get the DMs, you get the comments, you get the shares. So it's immediate. It's not months down the line that you realise, oh, this works. It's straight away. So yeah, for me, obviously, as I say, my audience is working mums. We're obviously during lockdown, they're struggling a bit with the kids at home. So that's what I talk about, and that's what gets people going, hitting my DMs and going, oh my goodness, I know exactly what you mean. So I'm not all about everything being, showing the highlight of everything. I am a lot, because I want to show my business to my best. But I'm also about showing the reality, and that's where I hit empathy with other mums, where they go, gosh, I get you, and you feel a connection there.
Well, yes, so you're giving them content that they can resonate with, and then it plays into that sort of that whole aspect of not sort of selling very overtly. It's they're warming to you, they're understanding you, they know you understand them, and
social media, it's basically about building friendship. So your followers, to an extent, feel that you're friends, and you're commenting to each other and chatting to each other as though, just like I do with people that I've known for a long, long time. And as everybody knows, people buy from people. And so if they feel a bit of a connection with you, then they're going to be like, oh, I want to support this, and I like what she does. I want to support you as well. So I'm gonna hit order.
And I think that's really sort of exploded. That kind of sentiment has exploded through lockdown, and that people are wanting to support the businesses that they connect with. And I think it's been an incredible time for small businesses that have been able to thrive during this period on the basis of these connections and community that they've built around them. And obviously a key component of that is point number 4 for us, which is producing engaging content, because your output needs to engage, it needs to inspire your audience, it needs to motivate your audience, it needs to drive conversation, because without that you're not driving any action, are you? I mean, whether you're wanting to sell or whether you're wanting to influence, it has to start with something. You have to be giving value, and understanding your goals, your positioning, your audience means that you're better able to produce the content that is going to engage them. You can show your points of difference, you can tell stories. I mean, is that something that either of you have found has worked for you in terms of being more personal and storytelling? The story of how an outfit came together, or always the story of a day in the life of a working mum. Those sorts of things resonate, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like in my captions, sometimes I do think they're quite long, and I feel like maybe they don't want to, maybe it's not story time today, but I do sometimes even write story time, but I like to talk about my day, just things that I've done or things that have happened, and things that people will relate to, things that have happened to them. And I like just being conversational and chatty, instead of just saying obviously sometimes talk about how nice an outfit is, but also talk about other things. It's not all about buying and the clothes and whatever. It's just about being a human, and being what you do and stuff that makes you interesting, and that hopefully interests them into you, as well as the Instagram the M&S Insider Jess or whatever. I don't want them to just think she's just an influencer. She's also a person with other, do you know what I mean?
Heart and soul and interests, and we're all real people. I think it's there's story tell, don't just sell, isn't it? It's like bring people into your world, and ultimately this is something that you said earlier, Louise, that social media is just that. It's social. People want to engage, people want to have conversations, you know, people want to feel, it sounds very dramatic, but people want to feel less alone, and you know, they come to social media, whatever platform it is, to engage and connect and form friendships, like you said, Louise. So I think there's a lot of love sort of within the social media bubble. Another thing I want to touch on, point 5 for us, is to develop a strong visual identity. Now, there's so many elements to visual identity. You know, it starts with brand, it starts with the logo, the colors, the palette, like the sort of how you articulate the vision for your business or your project. And there's a lot of things to it, but a lot of people will see visual identity or will see brand identity and they will just think logo or color palette or fonts. It goes beyond that. I mean, Louise, for you, do you feel like you've established a visual identity that people see as distinctively and recognizably yours, as opposed to sort of, you know, does that set you apart from your competitors?
No, it's a difficult one to judge. I'd like to think so, and I do get occasionally people going, "Oh, I knew this was your photo before I even sort of saw who it was popping up on my feed." So I'd like to think so, but it's something that I'm always working on, because when you start in business, you've not necessarily got the photo skills, you've not got an idea as to sort of where you want your brand to be necessarily at the outset. I mean, for me, I just sort of set off making what I wanted to make, posting pictures, and they were really bad pictures, and just seeing what happens. So it's a continual process for me that I'm improving. As I say, my visual branding, my photographs, looking at all the sort of visual side of things. It's still a work in progress for me. I'm still not probably where I really want it to be, but yeah, getting there. I'd like to think I'm slowly getting there as to sort of how I want my brand to be represented.
And it's the bigger picture as well, isn't it? So it's those elements like tone of voice and how you curate your output that comes into play as well. And you know, ultimately, whether you have budget to invest in an amazing brand identity, or whether it's something that is done, you know, on a more sort of restricted affordability, the ultimate sort of aim is really for everything to be consistent, for everything to be coherent, for there to be a vision. So we talk about, you know, Instagram, we talk about the grid, and you know what makes a good sort of visual identity when it comes to Instagram. It's a consistency in content, it's maybe a consistency in graphics, whether that's a Canva, you know, template that you've personalized, or something that has been designed by a designer. So I think, you know, ultimately appearing consistent with your content, with that visual element, it stands you in good stead. You know, you come across as professional, you come across as credible and distinct from competitors, and that again is one of the things that helps build community. So that's something to consider, and you know, budget is what it is in each different circumstance. And another thing that we have sort of touched on with some of these elements already is engaging with your audience. That's our point 7 to discuss. Is, you know, it sounds obvious, right? It's like engage with your audience, you know, but it's not about just talking to your following. So we've talked about telling stories. It's not just about telling the story and going, hey, tick, I've done my bit for the day. It's, you know, it's trying to encourage and sort of eke out that two-way conversation, you know, getting your audience to participate, to support you, to share your content, to engage in your content, to you know, whether it's come to a physical event, I mean, who knows when that's going to be happening, but you know, to sort of to show up and be there for you. I mean, do you find, Louise, as a business, that you do quite well with that engagement, that you do like user generated content and that kind of thing? How do you find that works?
Yeah, I mean, stories is ideal. Instagram are bringing out ways for you to sort of get feedback from your audience with yes, so there's so many ways to get it's sort of, it's a two-way conversation going on stories, and in asking questions in your captions on your posts, and for me, sort of, I build engagement with bringing my audience on a journey with me, so to properly see behind the scenes as to what I do on a day out basis by asking them, oh, what fabric should I choose, which do you prefer, showing them the fabrics on stories, and then I'll show them the making process.
No, we lost her.
I'm not sure.
Come back.
Yeah.
And so I've taken sort of my followers on a full journey that they feel invested in, and the next time I start that, they think, oh, I want to be involved, I want this end product, so I kind of like bring my audience on a journey with me in that way and get them engaged.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think each brand, each business is going to find a different way of engaging their audience and bringing them into the fold. And so user generated and user driven content is really powerful. It can really be the difference between someone acknowledging a brand and someone starting to trust a brand. So if you are, as a business, if you are sending out sort of postcards or leaflets with an order that says, use the hashtag, whatever it might be, and share your picture of you wearing the product or using the product, and you're encouraging people to actively become part of your community then, aren't you? So there's a lot of sort of ways of bringing your audience into community, whether it's encouraging them to rate and review you on Google reviews or on Facebook, or to share, tag, and sort of like and engage with the content. So I think that's only going to become more of a driver in social media success. It's something that particularly with Instagram, for example, the algorithm really picks up on how well people are engaging with your content, because it judges how relevant your content is on that basis. So it's really important to engage with your audience and to really drive that communication. One word answer: do both of you consider yourself planners when it comes to social media?
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. Point 7, sorry, that we want to sort of explore is to plan in a way that works for you. Now, for some people, it is like to the letter. It is day by day. They know exactly what they're going to post. For others, they might plan out a week, and then things get in the way, and then they're like, right, I need to get back on it. And I think plan in a way that works for you, but also be very mindful, and Louise, you'll have a sort of a sense on this when it comes to the retail calendar, but be mindful as to what your next 6 to 12 months looks like in the grand scheme of things. So what retail hooks are positioned where? How can you respond to them? How can you create content around them? Are you launching new collections to coincide with them? And Jess, again, from your perspective, when do the new collections drop from M&S, and when are you needing to create new content? When do you need to plan your photo shoots? When are you going to seed that through across your social media platforms? And I think you can plan out that to a certain extent and still have an element of spontaneity, because every day is different, and some days you'll have more that you want to sort of welcome your audience into than others. But I mean, Louise, for you, from the business perspective, is that kind of retail calendar something that you have like forefront of your mind when it comes to creating and planning content?
Yeah, you have to, because you've got to make the most of the big events that are happening throughout the year. So, for example, if you've got products that sell at Mother's Day, you've got to plan in advance of Mother's Day in order to maximise your sales before that period. And obviously Christmas Christmas is massive for everybody. So you've really got to plan from now up until Christmas. So for me, I'm looking at sort of when my last postal order is going to be for people to receive things, for example, by Christmas. Then for me, I'm a maker, so it takes me, my turnaround time is 3 weeks. So I've got to factor that in. So I need my orders to stop at a certain date. And then basically in my calendar, I'll work back from there. I've got to think about Black Friday, which is getting bigger and bigger every year. It's not just a day anymore. It's almost like a week.
And you've got Cyber Monday and all.
Exactly. And so people are leaving their shopping till sort of the last minute in a lot of cases. And for me, I can't do things last minute. I can't just pull things off the shelf and put it in the post. So I've really got to plan. And I've got to start hitting and talking about Christmas, as almost people find it a bit cringy to talk about the C word in August. I've got to in order to maximize my sales and to make sure I have a good Christmas that affects my business going forward next year. So I've got to plan working back from the important dates to make sure that everything's going to run smoothly and I'm not going to be overwhelmed and absolutely broken by December.
Yeah, and I guess that's a key thing for you, is that it's not an impulse buy come mid-December that people can just order. I know I'm going to have it by the end of the week, so I'm fine. It's about that ongoing education sort of outwardly to your audience to say, everything's handmade and like it's the quality that you get. It's it's not the sort of thing that you can just pick up on the go on the high street, and all of those different selling points are things that absolutely you need to be communicating and educating your audience on in the run up. So yeah, I think planning is going to look different for different people, for different businesses, for different industries, but I think you're not going to get to the end of the year. If you've planned, you're not going to get to the end of the year and go, I really could have had a sales lift in the summer if I'd have just thought ahead. So it's just being able to make the most of those opportunities. And I think also on the sort of micro level is to automate where you can. So when I'm in a sort of content creation zone, I'll go sort of blitz about 5 Instagram posts and I'll automate them so that I know I can sort of rest a little bit easier, that I know I've got content going out. So again, depending on how organized you are, you can automate so much. You can essentially forward plan the whole year in terms of content, and month by month is just block in and automate all of that content to go out. So there are all sorts of tools that will help you with that, whether it's Plannerly or Later or Hootsuite, so you can find whatever works for you there. And something that can play into planning is point 8 for us to discuss is reviewing, is looking at your analytics, the sort of historical data of what works for you on whatever platform it is. Now, for you, Jess, you mentioned that you've been using your analytics and your data to sort of determine who your audience is, what the makeup of your audience is. Has it informed you in terms of what content they most resonate with, or maybe what time works better for you to post? Has it sort of helped your output in that way?
Yeah, no, definitely. It comes up with the time when people are most active. So it's either like 9 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night. I feel like obviously people are on the phone and what at that time. So I do tend to post around those times just to make sure people see what I'm posting, get the most engagement hopefully out of it. But yeah, no, it is really insightful to see that as well. And also I feel like just reviewing what does best. Obviously we were talking about the likes thing at the beginning. Likes is a measure of like obviously how well people have responded to it. So in that respect it is good, but then obviously I do believe like likes are also a bad thing as well mentally. So the likes thing is a very controversial.
I think it's very easy to give a like, isn't it? So how good of a qualifier is that for whether you're successful on Instagram or not, for example? It's an interesting topic. Louise, do you use your analytics? Do your analytics inform your approach? And do you use it for sort of hashtag research and finding out who's coming to your page and how they're coming to your page?
Yeah, absolutely. The insights can break things down such a lot as to sort of where your audience are coming from, and especially on the hashtags. You can really have a good sort of with social media, everything's trial and error, to be honest with you. So with hashtags, you can have a real play around as to sort of doing a good mix of hashtags to see how many people are then coming into your post from hashtags. You can break it down to look at how many likes, how many comments, how many shares, how many saves. So it's not just about likes and comments. It's about other ways that people can engage and sort of share your content as well. So yeah, it's really important to look at sort of what's working, what's appealing to people.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah,
On the, I find more valuable to me with the whole reviewing thing is when people have saved something. Like when they saved it, I feel like, oh, they're gonna hopefully look back to that, or they've been inspired by that look or whatever. Like I would rather have 5 saves than however many likes. You know what I mean? So I think that's a good way to measure that.
Extra weight, isn't it? Like, oh, they really like my content. And I was going to say that the shares, seeing who has shared or sort of reposted your content, and the saves are really kind of weightier sort of ways of tracking your content, and they're sort of becoming even more important in the Instagram algorithm as well. So yeah, it's interesting to bring those into the mix. Point 9, optimize for results. Now, many of us are on all sorts of different platforms. We've got our website, we've got a blog, we've got our Instagram, our Facebook, maybe we've got a podcast, maybe like literally we are seeding our brands and ourselves in so many different directions. I mean, do you make sure that you are cross-promoting across those platforms and really optimizing how you connect people within your network and how you keep them in your network? Who wants to take that?
I need to do this more. I've got to say, I just focus on my Instagram and my Facebook. I do have a Twitter. I do have a Twitter account. I do have a Pinterest account, but I just don't have the time to focus my time on there. So I do need to do more, as you say, getting my audience across to various different platforms and sort of people talk about funnels and getting people sort of get you hitting your audience at several different points to keep them on the sales train, to keep them sort of with you in mind all the time. So yeah, that is something that I do need to work on, because at the minute, as I say, I just concentrate on Facebook and Instagram, which is I know where my audience is, but I do need to expand sort of the areas that I'm hitting as well.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of sort of topics within that, isn't it? It's how many different platforms are you on and how are you cross-linking them? But also, when you get someone from Instagram or Facebook onto your website, how do you optimize that result? Like making sure that you're keeping people on that page or within that website so that they're not bouncing off of your content, getting bored. Can you channel them through to your blog, which then links back to a services page or back to your product listing? And it's about kind of almost like trapping people in a bit of a web that, oh my gosh, before you know it, like I've just got so lost in this amazing content. So I think there's a lot of psychology to it as well, but sort of optimizing and cross-promoting, use all of the resources that you have available to promote to your audience, because like you say, Louise, it's that I think sort of in the marketing world, it's the rule of 7, which I think is probably more than 7 now. But, your audience or someone needs to engage or see your product or your brand up to and beyond 7 times before they will go from being a follower to a fan, or sort of convert from someone in your audience to a customer. So optimizing for results is really important. And the last point, so point 10 for us to cover, is to set boundaries and do not try and do it all. Now, I know I am guilty of finding myself consumed in my social media, and before I know it, I've lost hours, and it's kind of overwhelming, because once you get started with these conversations with engaging with producing content, you can really really fall down a rabbit hole. Have either of you kind of had to set yourself boundaries around social, or is it something that you're thinking, I probably need to do?
I think at the beginning of this whole M&S Insider thing, I knew that like I'd be going on my phone more, and I don't like that, going on my phone that much, to be fair. Obviously, like you say, you can get down that rabbit hole, but I definitely just like to say post on these certain days and then stay on for about maybe like half an hour to an hour to see if anyone comments, but I'll always, if someone comments and I haven't replied to them in a day, I'll always whenever go on next. But I definitely do like to just be like, right, that's it, no more now, because it's enough, I find.
It can be really blurry, can't it, that you're doing it to be social and because you enjoy it, but then also it's work. And usually, like, you'd get to a certain point in the day where you'd go like, I'm closing my computer and I'm not working anymore. So I think it's really important to set boundaries. Louise, how do you find that with, being a busy mum and running a business, running your social channels while you're looking after your family? Is it like a self-preservation to set boundaries, or do you just find that the limits are totally blurred?
During lockdown, the limits have just gone because I'm just eking out any sort of spare minutes. I put the kettle on. I'm doing a bit of networking online. So yeah, pre-lockdown, I would be pretty set hours. I've even got on my phone the well-being where certain apps cut off from sort of a certain time on an evening to make sure that. I mean, it just for helping you sleep. If you're looking at a screen right up until sort of 11 o'clock just before you go to bed, it's not good for a decent sleep pattern. So I would have that normally. But now, as I say, I'm just trying to eke out bits of time during my day at any time, really, just to get on and do a bit of networking. Because, as I say, there's networking online is always going to be helpful. And although you might not see the results of it straight away, 6 months down the line, the work that you put in now might come to something good. But yeah, once lockdown's gone and I've got my set hours where I'm child free and I can focus on business, and yes, I keep those hours. But now I am dipping in and out a bit. I need to sort of go back to sort of switching off a bit more and putting those boundaries in place. But it's difficult to
find the balance again when life gets some kind of normal. Yeah, I think it's the important thing is to not to try and do it all. So find the platforms that work for you. Don't overstretch yourself, because social media is supposed to be social, it's supposed to be fun, and it's a great way for us ultimately to promote our businesses in a very organic way. So I think we've covered everything. I mean, we've dived through so many aspects of social media across all the platforms. So thank you everyone for watching. We are going to go into Q&A now. So for those of you that have left questions in the group chat, then we will get to those.